Okay, you know the feeling. You're staring at a task, you absolutely know you need to do it, but actually starting feels like trying to push a mountain. Well, that feeling of paralysis, it's totally universal. But what if I told you there's a simple 2-minute mind trick that can bypass all of that? Let's dive in.
It can feel impossible, right? And it seems like the bigger the task, the more we run from it. But get this is not a character flaw. It's not about being lazy. The real reason you're stuck has nothing to do with willpower and everything to do with a quiet little battle happening inside your brain.
That's right. Procrastination is basically the result of a neurological tug-of-war. And the key to winning isn't to just try harder. It's to understand the players so you can kind of rig the game in your favor.
So, inside your head, there's this constant conflict. On one side, you've got your ancient limbic system. Think of it as your emotional fight-or-flight brain. When it sees a big, uncomfortable task, it sees it as a threat and just screams, "Avoid!" Then, on the other side, you have your prefrontal cortex, the newer, more rational part of your brain that handles all the planning. It knows you should do the work, but the limbic system is way faster and way stronger. So guess who usually wins that fight?
Here's the key takeaway from all that. Your brain isn't trying to sabotage your future. It's just trying to feel better right now. Putting off that difficult report to scroll on your phone, that gives you immediate relief. Psychologists call this short-term mood repair. Your brain is just taking the path of least resistance to avoid feeling uncomfortable.
So how do you outsmart a brain that's literally hardwired to avoid difficulty? Well, you don't fight it with brute force. You use a strategy so simple, so completely non-threatening, that your brain's internal alarm system doesn't even bother going off. And that is the 2-minute rule.
The whole idea is to lower the barrier to entry so ridiculously low that you just can't justify not doing it. It's a way to sneak past that emotional, threat-averse part of your brain and just get into motion. But you know what? It's not a one-size-fits-all rule. In fact, there are 2 really distinct, powerful versions of this rule, and each one is designed for a different kind of procrastination. One is for clearing out all those tiny annoying tasks that pile up, and the other is for tackling your biggest, most intimidating goals. And these 2 versions come from a couple of the biggest names in productivity. First, you've got David Allen's version from his famous Getting Things Done method. Its goal is pure efficiency, just eliminating that backlog. And then there's James Clear's version from Atomic Habits, which is all about building momentum and mastering the art of just showing up. Let's break them both down. First up, David Allen's rule for all those little tasks. The logic here is just brilliant in its simplicity. If a task pops into your head and you can do it in less than 2 minutes, just do it immediately. Why? Because the mental energy it takes to write it down, remember it, and come back to it later is actually more than the 2 minutes it takes to just get it done. This is how you stop that massive buildup of tiny to-dos that creates so much mental clutter.
And it really is that simple. Responding to that quick text, putting your dish in the dishwasher, hanging up your coat. Don't put it on a list. Just do it. This keeps your mind clear for the really big stuff.
But what about that big stuff? Writing a book, learning a new language, starting a fitness routine. That's where the second version of the rule comes into play. This one is all about overcoming the massive inertia of a huge goal.
So James Clear suggests you scale down any new habit into a 2-minute version. So run a marathon becomes put on my running shoes. Read 30 books this year becomes read 1 page. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. You're creating what he calls a gateway habit, an action that is so incredibly easy, it's pretty much impossible to say no to.
And this part right here is the most crucial point. The goal of this version isn't about getting immediate results. The goal is to standardize the act of starting. You're not trying to become a runner on day 1. You're trying to become the type of person who consistently puts on their running shoes. The rest, it just follows naturally. So why does this work so incredibly well? I mean, why is just starting, even for 2 measly minutes, so powerful? Well, the answer lies in some really fascinating psychological principles that explain the science of momentum.
It all starts with something called the Zeigarnik Effect. Back in the 1920s, a psychologist named Bluma Zeigarnik noticed that waiters in a cafe could remember these complex, unpaid orders perfectly, but they'd instantly forget them the second the bill was paid. Her research confirmed it. Our brains are basically hardwired to obsess over open loops.
When you start a task, even for just 2 minutes, you create what's known as psychological tension. It's like you've opened a new tab in your brain's web browser, and your brain desperately wants to close it. This tension is what makes you keep thinking about that unfinished project, creating this internal pull to go back and complete it.
And this just flips our entire understanding of motivation completely on its head. We think we need to feel motivated to take action, but the neuroscience shows the opposite is often true. Taking a small action is what actually generates the feeling of motivation.
And this principle actually has a name. It's called behavioral activation. It's a cornerstone of cognitive behavioral therapy, and it proves that the best way to get out of a rut isn't to wait around for inspiration to strike, but to just take one small, manageable step. The 2-minute rule is just a perfect application of this powerful idea. But wait, that's not the only thing happening in your brain. When you make even tiny progress, your brain gives you a little chemical reward by releasing a key neurotransmitter, dopamine. Now, we have to correct a huge myth here. Dopamine is not the molecule of pleasure. It's the molecule of motivation and pursuit. It surges when you anticipate a reward and when you take steps toward it. So that small win of just getting started provides a little dopamine hit that literally fuels your desire to keep going, making progress feel, well, kind of addictive. Okay, let's bring all this home. How do you use this to go from being completely stuck on the couch to making real, tangible progress on your goals?
The biggest hurdle in anything you do is what chemists call activation energy, that initial burst of effort you need just to get things moving. Procrastination happens when the activation energy for a task just feels way too high. The absolute genius of the 2-minute rule is that it dramatically lowers that activation energy. It makes the act of starting so laughably easy that your brain can't even put up a fight. And once you're in motion, the Zeigarnik Effect, behavioral activation, and dopamine all take over, creating this powerful momentum that just carries you forward. So forget about waiting for the perfect moment or for motivation to strike. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need to find the smallest possible first step. So I'll leave you with this question. What's one thing you've been putting off that you can work on for just 2 minutes right now? Pick one, set a timer, and just see what happens.